it's Lee from ColouringQueen.net, and thank you for joining me for another Mandala Monday. Today I wanted to show you one of my very first book of mandalas. It was actually given to me by Evelyn Illustrations, and she was the very first artist that I agreed to review her colouring book. And I'm just showing you some of the pictures that I've done for it, and it was my first colouring book that was handmade, and it was from Hungary. Now I don't know that if Evelyn, I don't know if she still sells these books or not, but she also gave me a fabric cushion and I coloured that in with Inktense on the fabric, and there's a video of that below, but I just wanted to show you how many I've done in this. It was about 4 years ago that I got this book, so it was when I first started colouring, and most of them are coloured in gel pens. Some of them are coloured in Tombow markers because I got those at that time. And yeah, I really didn't have any idea what I was doing and whatnot, and I think there's some that I haven't finished, but I'm pretty pleased. Yeah, I really don't know how to do this one, the Dreamcatcher, so I keep putting that one off. And this is one that I'm going to colour in today, I think. And I've got a few more to go and then I'll have finished the book. And I actually have 2 of these books, so it'll be interesting to see if I can do the other book and sort of, improve maybe my colour choices and whatnot. It was all handmade and it was tied up with little ribbons, and I thought it was just beautiful when I first got it. So yeah, we're going to start on this picture, and I thought that I would use my Crayola washable markers today. So I haven't used those for a while. It's a set of 20, and I don't mind the cheap and cheerful products. I'm a really cheap date, I always say it, so I'm happy to use the cheap and cheerful stuff all the time. So I've kind of got a colour scheme in mind. I wanted to go with pinks and oranges, or purples and oranges, because I think they go well together. And for some reason, although I don't like wearing the colour orange, I like colouring the colour orange, which I don't know if you guys are like that you colour something that you don't normally like. Like, I'm more of a purple person or a pink if I had to decorate, or a teal, but when it comes to colouring I always tend to colour everything in orange if I'm given free rein. So I'm going to push myself into the purple and the orange and see how that looks. I think it'll turn out okay, but you never know. And luckily there is another book in case I don't like it, so we'll see how we go. So I hope everyone is doing well. It's obviously Monday here in Australia, and we were meant to have a cyclone yesterday, or the tail end of a cyclone, but it seems to have blown away. There was a lot of wind yesterday and my clothes pony kept blowing over. And I call it a clothes pony because I've only got a clothes rack thing at the moment, because David took down my clothesline about 3 months ago, so he left me with just a little fold out rack, and you can't fit a lot of washing on one little rack, and when it gets really windy it tends to fall over, and because there's so many trenches and stuff outside it tends to fall in the mud, so I get to wash it again. So you can guess what I've been doing this morning. That's it, washing and washing up and washing. I actually got up at like 5 o'clock this morning because I was trying to do an online grocery order last night for hours, and it would not process my payment. And I tried different browsers, I tried different taking things off and putting things back and all the rest of it, and it would not process the order. And so then this morning I got up at 5 o'clock and I started to do battle with this online grocery order again. And I still couldn't get it to process, and tried different computer browsers, different dates, because I wanted to get it delivered. And still no go. So then, I don't know, after way too long, I decided that I'd download the app for the supermarket. And guess what? The order processed straight away when I did it through the app on the iPad. So I don't know what the story is with their website, but it was very frustrating. And also I couldn't get everything that I wanted from the one shop, so then I had to go and do another online order at the competing supermarket to get all of the groceries that I wanted. And I've still got a few items here that I haven't got, so I've got a little list, and I'll probably have to duck out to Aldi and grab those items. So the reason, of course, that I'm doing all of this online ordering and spending hours is because I'm going to go into voluntary isolation, because I'm in the high-risk group for the virus that is taking the world over at the moment. And I just want to make sure that I limit my contact with anyone that might be infected or could be infected. So I'm just going into isolation and need, my groceries for that. Now, obviously, I've been in isolation for quite some time because I am here all day long by myself with no car, and I don't really see anyone except to wave at the neighbours. And we haven't met anyone in Brisbane that you would, other than neighbours, that you would count as friends that pop around or anything like that. So I've been in practice for this isolation gig ever since we moved here, basically. Because the only person I basically see is David every day. Now, normally I do go out to the supermarket and I do a spot of shopping. I go to the hardware shop, and that's kind of like my big adventure. But with the virus going around, and because I'm in that high-risk group, I am really not wanting to see anyone or go anywhere. So there were things I needed for the supermarket, and there was I went to the supermarket yesterday. I was just going to duck in and get one or two things, but unfortunately our shelves, I don't know what you guys are going through wherever you are, but the shelves were just being picked over and there was nothing, left. And I needed a few items, not the elusive toilet paper asset, but I needed a few little things, and yeah, really hard to get. So I did get a couple of the things that I wanted, but I thought I'd better go home and online order it before, things are closed down completely. And between last night and today, they've stopped click and collect, where you can pick up your order, and they're only delivering it. And some stores are offering different times where customers can get served, so if they're disabled or elderly. So the whole world has sort of changed overnight. So that's why I was up at the crack of dawn trying to get the online order. I'm normally up at that time anyway because David leaves for work usually about 5 or sometimes earlier. And when he goes, I wake up and I get up. He doesn't like it if I am awake when he's getting ready for work, because he likes to have that sort of alone time to, get dressed and have his breakfast and look on the iPad, and doesn't like the conversation before he goes to work. So I generally feign sleep, or I just get up when he leaves, so he can have that alone time of the morning. And I know what he means, because I used to hate it when he'd pick me up from work and I'd just done a 12-hour day, and he'd be telling me all about his day and blah, 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 and I'd be just like, oh, I just want to, calm down and not think about anything just for the ride home and not have a conversation and just zone out. So I know what he means, and I don't take it personally that he doesn't want to talk to me of a morning. But I hope that everyone is okay that watches this channel. I said it in my Facebook group, I'm not the sort that ends every video with saying, oh, I love you and all of that sort of stuff. It's just not me. I'm sorry. I really admire people, though, that can do that. But it's just not me. But I do genuinely care about every single person. And I do love you. I'm just not very vocal in it. It's just not the way that I live. I'm not very demonstrative, I guess, in that way. But I do want you to know that I am thinking of every single person out there that has been affected or is worried or fearful about the current virus crisis. And I know that a lot of you have other worries, general health concerns, serious health issues, financial issues, emotional issues, mental wellness issues, and I know that this can be just an added burden on your plate. And I do want you to know that if you need someone to talk to and you just want to vent and just want someone that will listen, I am here, and I am more than happy to listen, because I do genuinely care about everyone's well-being, especially during this time. It's a really unprecedented time, and it's just very hard on people, and what we're seeing now and how people are reacting to it, and it's a real time to show kindness and support to one another and to really band together, so that just knowing that you have someone in your corner or someone that will listen to you, and that you're not alone even though you may feel it, I think will make the world of difference in people getting through this current situation. But I don't want to, talk about it. That's all I have to say about it. I'd rather, tell you about my garden. Oh, and the other thing I got when I went shopping the other day, and I'll show you in another video, is I'd been looking at this little book that they had at the discount store, and it was a gardening journal, and I thought, I wonder if that would be useful, and it didn't have a price on it, and I didn't want to get to the checkout and it was going to be hellish expensive, so I never bought it. But then yesterday I ducked in and I found one and it had a price on it, and can you believe it? I sweated over this book of whether I should buy it or not, and it was only $2, and it's got stickers in it and a fold-out thing of when you plant and all of these things, so that you can keep an eye or keep track of your garden. So I did spend the $2, and I bought my little gardening journal so I can write down which plants did well and which ones I won't plant again, and which position, because you can draw a little map, and which position of the garden they did well in, because I won't remember. I go to the kitchen half the time and I've forgotten why I went there. So, that will be good. And I think this purpley colour is looking quite nice on this mandala. So we'll see how it goes. I love the design of this. It looks kind of 3D and all layered. Yeah, so because we didn't have the tail end of the cyclone yesterday, we actually had a bit of sunshine, which wasn't overly hot and it wasn't cold, so it was a great time to actually be in the garden, because for once it wasn't raining or too high winds, so we actually enjoyed being out there in the garden. David is working on redoing our fence. We put a fence up and we're putting a gate so that you could open the gate and go up a path that we haven't done yet to land right at the bottom of the stairs. And of course, when we started to dig up for the paving for this, we ran into a tree root that is just way too high, according to all our fantastic Googling, to cut off without risking the tree dying. And it's a beautiful leopard tree, and it comes out with lovely yellow flowers, and it's got a gorgeous canopy on it, and I really love it. It gives a lot of filtered light to my plants that would otherwise melt in this heat that we get up here. So we decided that we would have to make like a winding path and realign where the gate currently is. So poor David's had to take the gate down and then cut the fence up and move the gate over to that part, and then repair the fence and realign all of it so we can pave it. But look, it's absolutely worth it because this tree is really, really beautiful. It provides so much shade, and it's honestly, when you walk around the garden, and it's our only really big tree, and it's so hot outside, and then you go under this tree, it's like 10 degrees less hot, and it's just a perfect spot to sit. I've got a table and chairs under there as well as my pot plants, and it's just perfect. But of course, while he's doing out the front, every neighbour wanted to have a little sticky, and some of them have just come back from overseas, and there's one guy who was a bit of a close talker, and he sort of spits a bit while he's talking, and David and I were really worried because David is very healthy, there's no problems at all with him, but I'm the one that's in the vulnerable situation, and I worry that David will bring home any nasties to me. But then we had this neighbour sort of talking and spitting while he's talking, and I'm thinking, oh my God, can I just sort of spray him all over? But I'm sure it'll be fine. So David worked on that, and what I did was I'd planted all these cherry tomatoes, and they were going absolutely crazy. I've got hundreds of tiny little tomatoes, and they were all running over my planter box. So what I did was I got some steel from David, and he bent it for me into a U-shaped or a curvy U-shape, and I was able to bring all the tomatoes up and over it. So I've made like a little tomato arbour, I guess, and so they can all live happily up there without... They were going crazy. They were going all over the side and all over the place. So I did lose a few though in the process. I lost about 10. So I thought that I would put them aside, and I'm going to build a compost bin this week because I've got an empty old garbage bin that's plastic, and apparently if you drill holes top and bottom and put newspaper and dirt and then all your composty things, you can make your own compost bin. Now, I know I might sound like I've gone a little bit hippie lately, but I've actually always been a little bit hippie. I've always been really interested in sustainable living and recycling and upcycling and whatnot. And then I just went through a period of time where I was just consumed with consumerism, basically. But when I was a teenager, the thing that I wanted most was to build a mud brick house, and I actually learnt how to build or create mud bricks back when I was about 16, 17. And when I was like 18 or so, I saved up and got an architect to draw up these plans for this beautiful mud brick house. So I could basically reuse the earth in order to build something. And that was kind of always my little hippie dream, to have a mud brick house and yeah, just a little sort of idyllic spot. So I sort of, do everything back the front, and then I sort of went to the very commercial and forgot all about that and forgot that life. But I've actually still got those plans, so if I ever want to go full on hippie, I'll be able to build that mud brick house. I think. Actually, it's probably good because I know more about building now. But I don't know about you guys, but I think often in your teens you go through a bit of a hippie period. I mean, if you did, let me know. I used to wear all the Tree of Life stuff and all the dangly earrings and have the incense and all of that. And then, of course, I got a very staid corporate job and that life just went right out the window. But I guess it's always still been there. And if it wasn't for those little garden seeds that I bought on special, I guess it would have just been sitting in the background of my personality. But buying those little seeds last year and then seeing them grow, and I got so fascinated with the whole garden thing. And now I just love going out there, looking at my plants and looking at my flowers. And yesterday afternoon there, I sat and organised my seeds. I've got them in a little container, so I've got them organised by season so that I know to pick up which container for which season to sow them. So I guess if it wasn't, for this little sale on seeds last year, I wouldn't have ever sort of developed that. And then we wouldn't be eating cherry tomatoes and eggplants, which is what I've got growing at the moment, veggie-wise. So I'm hoping to plant some more veggies, and I wish I'd bought more vegetable seeds, but I didn't. And I'm looking around the house and I really don't know where I would put them, to be honest. I've got very little space that I haven't sort of taken over. I know up the road there's a lady and she grows flowers on her nature strip, which is usually council's domain. So I was going to ring up the council and see if I could do that as well, so I could have more room for my flower garden. I mean, that's getting a little bit nutty, but I've got this really big frontage and I think it would look so much better with flowers on it. So, I don't know. In Sydney, you were able to adopt the nature strip and you actually could pay council and then you could put your own trees on it and you were responsible for mowing it. But I don't know what the situation here is with our council, but I see a few people around this suburb have all planted things on their nature strips, so I'm figuring if I run out of room for my flowers, maybe I can borrow a bit from there if council says it's okay. So I'm liking this purple and orange, but we'll see how it goes. The other thing that I've been doing is obviously checking my pantry and seeing what supplies I've got there. But I think ever since I watched the KonMari documentary about organising and whatnot, I got slightly obsessed with that. And I tell you what, it does work, especially in my wardrobe and in the kitchen. It really works. It's so much easier to find things. The place I find that it hasn't been as effective for me is in the colouring cave, because organising things vertically and whatnot, you've got to have all the specialty boxes and things like that. And I found that I don't have the room or the amount of space in order to really do that method properly here. So I've changed it a few times since I KonMari'd the colouring cave, but it has worked in the kitchen. And what I started doing was getting a little box and an empty box and putting it at the front of my pantry for all the bits and pieces that have a short use by dates, like they've got a month or 2 months to go, so that I can make sure that when I'm planning recipes and whatnot or looking for things to make, that I use them up first, because we were wasting so much food and throwing things out, and it was just really bad planning because we had things hidden at the back of the cupboard and we never really looked there. So now what I do is every time I put groceries away in the pantry, I quickly check the use bys on anything that I think is going to be up soon, and then I move them to this little box at the front so that I know that they've got to be incorporated in something. So I don't know if I've told you guys, but I'm on a real no waste project. So it started last year when I was looking at my bathroom cupboard, and I think it's all part of that KonMari thing as well. I think it sort of changed me and got me thinking better about things and being a bit more responsible and a bit more of a grown up, which I should be by now. I'm middle aged, for goodness sake, but a slow learner. So when I went through the bathroom cupboard, there were all these little bottles of hope, you know, that you buy in a jar. You look 10 years younger or brighter or glowy or dewy or whatever it might be. And you buy them and then you sort of use up a little bit of hope and nothing changes. You don't turn into Cindy Crawford overnight, and you buy another jar of hope and, you know, go through the same process so that you have all these little half jars of hope in the cupboard. And other things, you buy things and they're really not your favourite, or you get given things and they're not your favourite. And so, for example, my mother-in-law, for the last 20 years, she's given me scented soaps and things like that. And I actually have super sensitive skin and I break out in a rash on anything that's, highly scented. So I always used to give them away to a friend, and he'd give them to his children. And but now, because I don't live near them anymore, I've got this collection of things. So I've donated some of them to the local animal care thrift shop, and then other things that I can wear, but I just would prefer not to, I've actually been wearing because they don't give me a rash or whatnot. And if there's a little bit left, I'll just use it up so I'm not wasting all this stuff. We always used to get the toothpaste, and there'd always be like 3 sort of half-empty toothpastes in the cupboard, and every time a new toothpaste appeared, it was the latest and the greatest. So the poor other ones got crumpled up and put in the corner, like no one loved them, and like little toothpaste losers over in the corner, and no one went there unless you were really desperate. But now what I do is, I know David always likes the full tube of toothpaste, so I just use up all the little scrappy bits in the little half tubes or whatever. I just use them for me, and he can have the new fresh one. But just so I'm not wasting it, because when I look at that bathroom cupboard with all the things in it that don't get used up, it just seems, I don't know, it just seems terrible that it's just sitting there. And it's the same with my colouring supplies, like my Sharpies, for instance, and my Bic markers. I like colouring with them, but they're not my favourite supply. So I want to use those up, and then I can just have that space and not buy them again, because I don't enjoy them as much as other markers, and I really prefer my Spectrum Noirs or my Copics, preferably my Copics, because they're easy to get refills, and they've got a lot of colours, and in Australia the Spectrum Noirs are a little bit hard to get a hold of. So the Copics are really easy to get hold of. So I really prefer those ones, the refillable ones, and rather than just buy up others, when the Sharpies dry out, I'm just going to use them all up and then not buy them again, because I know, now what I like and what I don't like, and I guess that's the advantage. After a certain time with anything, you get to know what you like and what you don't like. So I'm going to use those up, and today, after I do this video, I'm going to go and do some baking. So I'm going to make an apricot slice and some apricot and almond muffins. So if you've been following along so far, you'll probably know why. That's because I found a bag of dried apricots that are about to expire, so I want to use those up before they expire, so and make the apricot slice. David can take it for work, and the apricot and almond muffins, because I've got all the ingredients and I can pop them in the freezer and David can take them to work or have them for breakfast or whatnot. And then I'll also know maybe I shouldn't buy a kilo of dried apricots because we're not going to use them. So at least this way I'll get them all used and not waste so much. So I've got a little cupboard for all my baking stuff as well. And I really need to go through that one and make sure that, you know, the chocolate chips and the little bits and pieces that you might get, like almonds and almond flour and things like that, that they aren't getting to their expiry date. And I need to get another little box to put in that cupboard to put anything in that might be, you know, close to expiring that I need to use up. It's actually, I don't know what's wrong with me lately, if it's a nesting or if I'm just going full on hippie, but it's actually super satisfying to use things up that you have and not waste them. Well, for me, I don't know about anyone else, but I know I went through a stage where I couldn't care less, and so I guess we, you know, might all have shifts and cycles of what we like and what we don't. But at the moment, I'm in full on nesting, and you know, this isolation caper is nothing new to me, so I've been doing it for a while now, and I am just, yeah, really happy just to use things up and not waste things and sort of live a little bit more of a conscious life of actually thinking about things and thinking about things before I throw them out and whatnot. So I guess I've reverted to maybe my grandfather's era or maybe my mother's era. I'm not sure, and I'm not sure why I've gone through this stage, but I think often for me it's like a security thing. When I'm uncomfortable or worried about things, I tend to nest at home and, you know, like everything all to be, you know, very home based and perfect home, Martha Stewart, eat your heart out stuff. So I guess all the uncertainty over the last, you know, year and not having a job and stuff, I think might have just pushed me into this real nesting mode, which I don't think is a bad thing. And I'm not bothered by it because I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's just the way that I deal with certain things, and that's just me. And, you know, when I'm ready not to nest, I'll not nest, and if I find good points about nesting, I'll keep them, and that's what I'll do. But to add to my hippie nesting, I'm also going to make my own washing powder later on today, after I make that apricot slice and the apricot and almond muffins. So I'm going to make my own washing powder, and the reason for that is that, again, I think it's a nesting thing. My stepfather used to make his own sort of washing powder, and I have kind of fond memories of that, and I thought, well, you know, it's actually pretty cheap to make, and I know what the ingredients are, and I think I can make that, and it'll be a good washing powder to wash out all the pets' blankets and things like that in it, all their bedding, because it's got like eucalyptus oil, which is really good for bacteria and germs and whatnot, and smells nice as well. So I thought I'd make up some of that, so washing powder, and then I'm also going to make up some cordial. Now, I know you can buy cordial from the shops, and we normally do, but for when I was a child, we had this recipe book, which I have been trying to find for years. Every time we go to a thrift shop or a fete, I'm always looking for this recipe book that we had when I was a kid. And it's sort of like a cream colour cover with like red checks or diamonds across the front of it. And there's other books that have got the same sort of cover, which I've bought over the years. And then when I've got home, they haven't got the recipes in it that I remember. But one of these recipes was for a citrus cordial, and it had Epsom salts in it, which now that I think about it seems like a weird ingredient. But I used to make this as a kid, and I'd bottle it all up and have it all through summer. And I did a lot of cooking as a kid, and also professional cake decorating, or entered competitions for cake decorating and things like that. So I really loved baking and I really loved cooking, and I had little stalls at the market every weekend, and I would sell my little wares, my cakes and my crafts. And I guess people felt sorry for this kid at the markets every weekend, and they'd give me money and buy my stuff. And with all that money, I used to go, originally I'd go horse riding, to horse riding camp over the school holidays, so it'd be for like 2 or 3 weeks. And if you're Australian, I used to go riding in the snowy mountains, which nowadays, of course, you can't do because it's a national park and it's protected. But, you know, back in my day, in the olden days, we could go riding through the snowy mountains, and it was a real experience. And we did that for like weeks at a time, or sometimes we'd go and move cattle from one farm to another over weeks. So it was really good fun, and to pay for those horse riding camps, I would sell the cakes and all my crafty things at the markets every week. And then after a while, I bought my own horse and all my saddle and everything else, and just a stock horse, so I could use it to round up sheep and things like that. And then after a while, I bought another horse, which was the Pony Club dressage fancy pants horse that loved to jump and take part in dressage and all of that sort of stuff. So I bought the 2 horses, the saddle, the horse riding camps for years, just all with baking and whatnot. And all the things that I baked were from this cookbook that I cannot find. Anyway, I've been trying to find that cordial recipe for years. And do you know what finally dawned on me? I don't need that recipe book. I have this thing called the internet, and in one Google search I'll be able to get that recipe. So finally I did the Google search, and of course it was the first recipe that came up, because I just popped in homemade cordial with Epsom salts, because that's an unusual ingredient, and I thought that would trigger the search result, and it did. And so now, after 20 years, I'm finally going to make 20, actually more than 20, finally going to make that cordial that I used to make as a kid. And I'm hoping that I'm not going to be disappointed as an adult and think, oh, this is a bit lame. It's not as good as the regular cordial we buy from the supermarket. I'm hoping that I haven't imagined it to be better than what it was. So we'll see. But I'm missing one ingredient, and which is tartaric acid. And all the shops don't seem to have it at the moment. So unless I have this one ingredient, I don't think I can make it. Now, I know you can sort of substitute cream of tartar and just do twice as much, but it doesn't have the same actual properties, I believe, as tartaric acid. So I don't know how it would react, but I really wish I could get a hold of this missing ingredient. I've been trying to look for it online all today, and no shops seem to have it, but that might just be a reflection of what the world is going through at the moment, because the strangest things seem to be selling out at the supermarkets. So I don't know, maybe next week they'll have it. So if I can get hold of it today, I'm going to make up that cordial, make the slice, make the muffins, and then make the washing powder. Oh, and I'm also going to make up some a sort of homemade weed spray that's or pest spray. It's got like chili and garlic in it, and I've got chili and I've got garlic, so I can make that to get rid of pests, because I've got something that's eating my plants and leaving holes in it. So I want some sort of natural pest spray. And I'm going to make up a natural weed killer spray that's got like vinegar in it and whatnot. I've got all the ingredients for that one. And what else am I going to make? After that, after I make up all my little potions and lotions and whatnot, then I'm going to go out and pick up a bread maker that I bought on Facebook Marketplace. So it's never been used apparently, and it was only $20. So hopefully I'll find some bread on flour on the shelves, so that I can actually make some bread, or otherwise I'm going to have to order the flour online. But I'm hoping to give it a go. So that's it from me. Until next time, happy colouring.